Huge.
So that's obviously Robert E. Lee.
Right.
How hard was it just to get them here into this space without people knowing where it is?
Well, it was physical. I mean, everything was a challenge, as you know.
Some people seeing this may be upset to see Robert E. Lee in a dusty warehouse in an undisclosed location.
Anderson Cooper went down to New Orleans, spoke to the mayor about the decision to take down the statue of Robert E. Lee. You gave him the idea.
Right. We were just sitting down having a conversation in the morning, just like two kind of middle-aged friends knew each other.
He goes, I want you to take the Robert E. Lee monument down. And that's the first time I actually...
So it was Wynton Marsalis who said to you,
it was absolutely Wynton who said to me, I really want you to think about taking that thing down. And I said, well, why would I do that? And he said, well, have you ever thought about what that statue is? And I said, no. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, something to the effect of, well, if you saw it from my perspective, you would understand how demeaning it is.
From a symbolic standpoint, Robert E. Lee statue sits over our city. It's like a curse over our city. What direction do you want our city to go in for its 300th anniversary? He's like, yeah. He wasn't arguing with it. He was like, I didn't think about that. Let me think about it.
Most statues of historical figures sort of recede into the background. You barely notice them.
Some people don't notice it, but it's in the center of the city. It's called Lee Circle. So it's a definitive marker in the city. The only reason I noticed the statue was my great uncle, who was born in 1883, always talked about that statue.
What did he say?
What you think he said? He pointed out I was 5, 6. I lived with him for a year when I was 6. He pointed out every time he hated that statue.
Every time you walk by?
He hated the statue. He grew up on a plantation. He was kind of rough. He wasn't like a people today. Like, he was a stonecutter for the cemetery. He believed in America, though. And he knew all the injustice. He wasn't like one of these closed eyes, kind of wave a flag and smile and just be, I'm just happy to be here, boss. He wasn't like that at all. But he loved the proposition of the country. He was denied the vote for many years. He went through stuff. I mean, it made my great uncle feel bad. So because it made him feel bad, I was aware of it.
Some of the historians were arguing that statues like this one should stay there.
Why? Why should they stay there?
The argument that they make is that it's a slippery slope. You start taking statues down, where do you stop?
Okay, that same argument could be made about integration. It could be made about women's rights. It's a slippery slope. Once you start paying them the same amount of money, where do you stop? That's always the argument that's made. And the whole thing about it's our history, everything is our history. Them putting it up as our history, us taking it down is our history. That is our history.
That's part of history too.
Everything we do is a part of our history.
Right.
There are things you did that you will not do again. You can't eradicate it from your life, but you damn sure don't have to celebrate it. And what he did was not worthy of celebration in the city of New Orleans.
Robert E. Lee.
The person who led the Confederate forces against the armies of the United States of America, and they lost.
They lost.
Where in the world are you going to find a losing general with a statue in a major city of the country that won? Oh, good, look around. You tell me, when you find that statue, take a picture of it and show me.
I was here last night, but I never.
When it came down, did you think of your uncle?
Yeah. When the decision for it to come down, I thought of him. Yeah, definitely. I had to do that. You know, I loved him.
This would have meant something to him.
It would have meant a lot to him, because he had a lot of pride.
Did Mayor Landrieu call you when the decision came through?
He called me, yeah.
What was that conversation like?
He said, yeah, man, we did it. It came down. I said, yeah, congratulations, great. You know, if you get on the ground to do 1,000 push-ups, you're not gonna celebrate at 50. You know, we have thousands and thousands of push-ups to do. Our lives are not gonna be long enough.
What is this building here on the right?
This is the library.
Yeah, that's a nice building.
And actually, what they've done has been terrific. It's got a digital studio where, like, you can go and make a video that you can attach to your resume. Also, this is the Rock. We'll go visit the Rock. Let's talk to these.
Ladies. Margaret Spellings, good to meet you. How are you? Hello.
That is, she is the president of all 17 campuses.
Well, that's a very worthy cause.
Guys, have a nice day.
You too.
Now, what happens if you take the whip through the
Tell
thing?
them what happens. Tell her what happens if you go underneath the clock.
Do not graduate on time.
Oh, well,
So
stay
if you
away.
wanted me to improve my 4-year and 6-year graduation, I'm gonna put those everywhere.
Okay, you had all-time high record enrollment this year, didn't you?
Yeah, we're about like 30 students short of 20,000. All right.
Hello, hello.
What do we have going on here?
We are trying to shine light on mental health awareness today.
Right.
So we decided to make masks of how you feel on the inside.
I like the one that's courage, disappointed, patience. I think every chancellor should have a mask like that.
This is playing against type with this innocence one for you, Frank.
I think that's yours, Madam President. They're all coming
this
for
is
the
the
cake.
party.
I'm gonna beat you to the cake.
We'll save you a piece of cake.
I'm gonna beat you to the cake. That's a fact. Ain't holding nothing back. House. Yeah, I'm gonna My band can kill that.
Exactly.
My band's so good. Oh, and see the cake over there?
Oh, that's the cake? Can we go see it?
Yeah. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I don't know, I just saw my face on a cake, so that's a pretty good deal.
It's a beautiful cake.
I love UNC-G because it's a place that's adapted to the times. Look around you, it's meeting the needs of local and national students. So I'm thrilled to be here. Happy birthday, UNC-G.
In favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that, the motion carries.
The vote by UNC-G's Board of Trustees was a quick one, but the discussion to get there took time. 11 university leaders from UNC-G's board and the Aycock ad hoc committee had a roundtable discussion about Governor Charles Aycock.
I'm not in favor of taking the name down. I think it's an opportunity to educate.
Aycock is known as the education governor and had a strong tie with UNC-G.
Aycock was friends with McKeever. That's a pretty well-known fact. He visited our campus several times during his years as governor. He spoke at our 1902 commencement.
The controversy of Aycock's name on the auditorium stems from what he stood for when it comes to race relations.
The rise of the Democratic Party, and led by Charles Aycock, was a racist effort. It was to disenfranchise. They ran on the proposition of disenfranchising blacks, that they were second-class citizens.
In the short term, changing the name will have some very negative impacts on the opportunity for donations, etc., from the age group that I represent. On the long term, I think it's clearly the right thing for us to do.
Chancellor Gilliam says besides the vote to remove the name, today's discussion proves times are changing.
It's a difficult issue, but it can be handled. I think the broader lesson, is we can talk about race, and I will use the word race and put an emphasis on it in a civil way.
Hello everyone, I'm Deborah Morgan. Today marks 2 years since Margaret Spellings took office as UNC system president. In that time, there certainly have been some challenges, but Spellings says a lot of progress too. WRAL's Sarah Kruger joins us live now on Chapel Hill's campus. And Sarah, how does Spellings respond to our questions about the decision to keep Silent Sam at UNC?
Well, Deborah, she referenced a letter that she wrote to the governor back in August in which she expressed concern for campus safety because of the protests that Silent Sam causes. But all along, UNC's position has been that whatever happens to Silent Sam is up to the state. So today, instead, Spellings focused on her accomplishments and her goals. When students and faculty learned Margaret Spellings would be UNC system president, there were protests. But today, Spellings sat in the very spot where some of those protests happened, saying she feels she has quieted her critics.
I think I really have. I mean, these folks are my friends, and it's been, I don't see anybody around here protesting.
Spellings high.
Here we go. With 2 years now under her belt, Margaret Spellings reflects on her time as the UNC system president.
If I do say modestly, I think we've been busy and gotten a lot done.
Many of her critics have quieted over the years, but the pressure is still on. Students want UNC-Chapel Hill to remove the Silent Sam Confederate statue.
President Margaret Spellings, welcome to Education Matters.
Thanks, Keith. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here too. Well, I want to go ahead and ask you, I mentioned in our headlines, obviously you, like the rest of the country, watched all the horrific events in Charlottesville. And you know the University of Virginia, actually there's a lot of similarities, frankly, between UVA and Carolina and Chapel Hill, including a prominent Confederate statue right in the middle of the Chapel Hill campus, which I think is the only Confederate statue on any UNC campus. Is it time for UNC Silent Sam to go?
I'm proud this week that we had a peaceful protest about Silent Sam, and that you know, our prime mission and most important calling as university leaders is to keep our students on our campuses safe and healthy and wholesome educational environments while protecting the free speech rights of all of us. And so that's where we are. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a 2015 law that's been passed that does not give the university the power to remove those monuments and memorials. That's in the hands of the State Historical Commission, and so and our state legislature. Right. So our job, mission one, is to make sure that we have a safe learning environment for our students.
As the UNC president, are you involved in discussions with Chancellor Folt or other stakeholders, talking to students? I mean, it does seem like if discussion and dialogue is going to happen anywhere, it's going to be on a college campus,
sure,
right?
And that's what happened this week, and I'm sure will happen again. Right. The law is very specific about who has the authority to take action and to decide where those monuments belong. As you said in the opening, we are unique in that this is a monument that is in the heart of our state's flagship university. Right. And so it does pose additional costs and challenges and potential safety threats to our students, faculty, and staff.
I want to thank everyone who attended the session yesterday. The room was really packed. Many expressed deep pain and fear of what the Confederate monument represents to them. Based on everything we know, there is no question that the monument was erected during a period when white supremacy, bigotry, and racism were a strong message, and that was conveyed publicly by those who supported the symbolism of the artifact and spoke at its dedication. As I have been hearing, and as the board heard so powerfully yesterday, the symbolism is frightening, it's raw, it's painful to our students and other members of the community every day. I'd like to reiterate that if I had the authority in the interest of public safety, I would remove the monument to a safer location on our campus where we could preserve, protect, and teach from it. What I heard yesterday only reinforced that belief.
First of all, we sincerely appreciate the input of all who participated in our open forum. We heard many thoughts and many options suggested by our 28 speakers. We also heard much passion, much emotion, together with many very personal experiences which reinforce our opposition to white supremacy and racism in all forms. We are supportive of and committed to working with our Chancellor and her administration to develop the very best possible solution available to us.
Thank you. And the Confederate controversy continues as Democrat Congressman David Price calls for UNC to take Silent Sam down.
CBS North Carolina political reporter Bo Minnick is digging deeper to find out where the congressman thinks the statue should go. Bo.
Sharon, Congressman Price tells me that Silent Sam belongs in a museum. I'm going to go ahead and take a step out of the way right now so photographer Dan West can show you how people have surrounded Silent Sam for more than a week, calling for it to be removed, but UNC leaders maintain they do not have the authority to do so.
To take down Silent
Some call it hate, others say it's history and heritage. The debate over Silent Sam and other Confederate monuments is drawing passionate opinions from both sides, including from Democratic Congressman David Price.
We can't choose our history.
but we certainly can choose the history that we honor.
Price is a UNC alum, and his district includes the university. Price is aware there is a debate not only about whether Silent Sam should come down, but can it come down under current state law. In 2015, the General Assembly passed a law that restricted local governments from removing the monuments without the approval of the State Historical Commission. But Governor Cooper advised UNC there is a part of the law that allows for statues to be removed if there is a risk to public safety. Today, Price told me his stance on the law.
Repeal this law. It is not appropriate. It is not in the best interest of North Carolina communities to have the legislature take it unto itself these decisions.
Last week, I talked with Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger about the law.
The law's in place. I think the law should be followed.
Today, I caught up with UNC Board of Governors Chair Lou Bissett as the board toured a science lab at NC Central.
We've discussed this at length with our attorneys. We've talked to the governor's attorneys. We've talked to the legislature's attorneys. And we have concluded that as a university, we do not have the authority to remove that statue.
And the UNC Board of Trustees says that it is continuing to discuss its legal options with the Board of Governors. Live in Chapel Hill, Bo Minnick, CBS, North Carolina.
Calls growing to remove the Silent Sam Confederate statue from the UNC-Chapel Hill campus. The statue has been vandalized a number of times over recent years. All new this half hour, the mayor of Chapel Hill sat down with our Anthony Wilson to talk about the possible changes.
This moment's gone viral after activists pulled down the Confederate soldier statue that stood on Durham's Main Street since 1924. At the other end of Tobacco Road, Chapel Hill's mayor wants Silent Sam moved peacefully by authorities.
My main concern is public safety. These rallies, these protests, this toppling down of statues is a major concern for the town and the university.
Mayor Hemminger's encouraged by the governor's call for moving Confederate statues in North Carolina. Mayor Hemminger's also heard from people who want Silent Sam to remain in place. She recalls earlier actions taken against the statue and asks on this day,
please be respectful. Please realize that I know this has raised anxieties on both sides of the issue. We just want to make sure no one gets hurt.
The mayor says if the statue is moved from its place here on the campus of UNC in Chapel Hill, she'd like to see it go to a building in town where it can be used as a teaching tool. Reporting from Chapel Hill, Anthony Wilson, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
An anonymous group has told UNC's chancellor if she does not remove this Confederate statue on Chapel Hill's campus, they will take it down themselves. The group, claiming to be 17 faculty members, sent a copy of its letter to the student newspaper, the Daily Tar Heel. The group is giving university leaders until Thursday before it says it will take matters into its own hands. WRL's Sarah Kruger is live now at UNC's campus. Sarah?
Deborah, every day since the school year has started, students have stood right here calling for the removal of Silent Sam, and clearly it has not worked. But now it seems that one group may be willing to take this one step further.
No matter the conditions outside, every day you'll see UNC students standing by Silent Sam in protest.
Because the university promises us a campus free of racial discrimination and racial hostility. And by having this up, they're not fulfilling that promise.
Senior Michelle Brown is here for 2 hours every Monday.
When it's at the very front of our university, it shows that this is the thing that we value most.
The Confederate statue has drawn crowds of protesters over the last several months. Now an end may be in sight. The Daily Tar Heel reports that it was contacted by an anonymous group claiming to be 17 UNC faculty members. It gave the paper a copy of the letter it sent to UNC's chancellor, saying if she doesn't take the statue down by Thursday, their group will.
Yeah, they're my heroes.
A UNC spokeswoman confirms the chancellor got the letter, but said the university could not verify its authenticity. Neither could the Daily Tar Heel. Students tell me the statue puts a damper on campus morale.
It's just a very sad fact that anyone would be hurt by anything on this campus, since we do like to promote acceptance and support for everyone.
A UNC professor who is not behind the letter sees many reasons the statue should go.
It's just a resource suck on time, energy, money. There's a police detail right over there who's obviously being paid to be here.
And the students I talked to today told me they are feeling rejuvenated by what happened in Durham, where all of the people charged with toppling that Confederate statue had their charges dropped last week. Now, in the past, the chancellor here, Carol Folt, has said that she feels her hands are tied regarding Silent Sam. Because this is public property, she feels the future of Silent Sam is up to the State Historical Commission. Deborah.
See what happens on Thursday. Sarah Kruger, live in Chapel Hill. Thank you.
Yeah, and Tisha, it seems that the statue is being guarded right now around the clock. Within the last 10 minutes or so, a campus police officer was out here. And then this afternoon, I spotted another officer watching over the monument from inside a nearby building. Students right now feel the university is trying to silence them in their fight over Silent Sam.
People, what side are you on? We're on the freedom side!
We kept pace and followed the group as they marched from a rally outside Chancellor Carol Folt's office.
Who do you serve? Who do you protect?
To the Confederate monument. Protesters are kicking up efforts to remove Silent Sam from school property.
I don't feel comfortable walking past this statue every day.
Recently, UNC sent undercover officers to attend Silent Sam sit-ins.
There were tents here. People were talking with each other, just having dialogue and discussion. It was very peaceful. So why they needed to infiltrate doesn't make any sense to me.
Your point being, you have the right to protest.
We have the right to protest, and we're doing it peacefully.
I tried to talk with university officials about these concerns. The request for an interview was denied, and I was referred to a statement put out last week, which says in part, the recent use of an undercover officer on our campus was limited to both time and scope and was necessary because of the extraordinary circumstances that included a very real potential for a violent outbreak at any time. Violence did flare up in Durham over the summer, and a statue was ripped down by angry protesters. The university says it has no legal authority to remove Silent Sam. Tomorrow, several students are going to the Board of Trustees meeting and will be speaking out.
We're asking that the university petition the North Carolina Commission to revisit Silent Sam before April.
Now, attorneys who represent a dozen students and a professor as well are threatening to file a lawsuit if this is not removed from campus. We're live tonight in Chapel Hill. Elaine Athens, ABC 11 Eyewitness.
It has been weeks on end of protest and pressure from students trying to get Silent Sam taken down, but the statue still stands. Now those students are trying to hit the university in its pockets. But we also have some new surprising details to report on why this controversial statue is not on the state's agenda for removal. Tonight at UNC, the anti-Silent Sam movement strategized their next steps in the fight, all while a big day looms on this week's calendar. On Friday morning, the state's Historic Commission, the only state body with the power to remove Confederate monuments, is set to meet. And while the panel will vote on whether to relocate 3 Civil War-era monuments off of the Capitol grounds in Raleigh, the commission says Silent Sam is not on the agenda and will not be discussed. This is the agenda. Silent Sam is not on it.
We were hoping that with the boycott and all the attention that the statue's getting now, that they would push for it, and so we're honestly shocked that it's not on there.
But given the tense controversy this semester, why is Silent Sam not on the commission's agenda? We got a surprising answer from Governor Cooper's office, a spokesperson telling me Governor Cooper's office reached out to the UNC system to see if they wanted Silent Sam included on the Department of Administration's petition to the Historical Commission. They let us know they did not wish to do so at the time. What's your reaction to that?
So I'm shocked.
And so students have organized a campus-wide boycott, asking classmates not to spend their money on commercial goods that the university profits from.
University parking lots, the bookstore, Alpine, Wendy's, the bottom of Lenore, any of those chains restaurants. We're not including the dining halls because parents and students provide those meals.
I've done the boycotts to an extent.
Sophomore Bailey McInnes is still buying her class materials from the bookstore, but says she's on board with the cause to remove Silent Sam.
To me, it's a peaceful way to put some pressure on them and tell them that the students are here and this is what they want.
So this was day 3 of the boycott. It's set to run until October 18th. Meantime, we did hear back from UNC Systems spokesperson Josh Ellis. He did not address the question on why the system declined to take up the governor's offer to petition the Historic Commission, but he did say they will be watching Friday's proceedings closely to see how the Historic Commission evaluates these kinds of decisions on removing Confederate monuments. at UNC. I'm Joel Brown, ABC 11 Eyewitness News. Yeah, Steve, tonight was the first chance many of these students had to talk one-on-one with Chancellor Folt about Silent Sam and tell her exactly why they feel the statue is racist, why they feel the statue should be removed. Organizers wanted this meeting to be open and frank, so they asked us to leave a few minutes in. We stood out here, but when it was all over, we quickly got the sense that Chancellor Folt's answers did not go over very well. UNC doctoral student Maya Little left tonight's meeting still frustrated, still hurting from her confrontation caught on camera while she was handing out flyers at Silent Sam to UNC football fans headed to Saturday's game.
As I asked him, would you like more information about Silent Sam, he brought his face closer to mine and made very racist monkey noises at me.
Then came a threat.
And I will kill him. I don't think this incident would have happened if Silent Sam wasn't here.
That was the main theme of tonight's face-to-face with Chancellor Folt and her team. The students feel the Confederate monument is symbolic of a slave-holding South and provokes racial animus on campus.
I'm very frustrated. I was on the verge of tears.
Michelle Brown is one of the leading student activists pushing for Silent Sam's removal, last week launching a student boycott of UNC food and retail stores. The same week that Eyewitness News learned that UNC system leaders declined Governor Cooper's office to add Silent Sam to a petition to the State Historic Commission to have the statue removed.
Another person asked, why didn't you file with the commission? And the chancellor said that that wasn't in her ability, despite the commission saying that it was in her ability.
She said she couldn't do it.
She said she could not do it.
You even believe her?
I don't.
Can we grab you quickly?
I'm sorry, I'm running up to give a talk.
Chancellor Folt passed by our questions of why UNC declined the chance to get Silent Sam on the commission's agenda, so we asked Folt's lieutenants.
I wasn't involved in that decision, so I don't know.
You don't understand?
I was not part of that piece of it.
That conversation isn't part of what we discussed tonight.
Do you know why?
I think that the students really, if you think about some of the pain that they say they were sharing, I'm not sure the students really care why, they just want it moved.
Yeah, they do. The students also know that the Historic Commission isn't expected to meet again until April to make a final decision about those Confederate monuments over at the state capitol. The students say they will now focus their efforts on petitioning the commission on their own to get commission members to take up the Silent Sam issue before the spring. We're live at UNC tonight. I'm Joel Brown, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
Who caused you to come here?
The protest and the defacing and the disrespect for that monument.
Why are cops protecting this statue?
Silent Sam will fall. Get used to the idea.
Go home. Go home. Okay. And then I saw him get it, and I was really scared because I was like a child 10 years old. Go home. Why would you say that to a child? And he got in his car, and his car had like the Confederate flag on it.
That's fucked up.
The counter demonstration took place because the administration did not prevent racists from arriving on campus. So we had to quickly get together and figure out how we were going to push back and defend ourselves and show that racist extremists coming to our campus without any prevention whatsoever or without any regard to student safety and staff safety as well is not okay.
90% of the talk that we've had to listen to from even our side to them has been about racism. Yeah, about the issue. About the issue. The real issue we're here, and what I wanted to really come here for, let's go for that right there. That's right. That's right. We're here to commemorate and honor the name that monument stands for. Amen. But I want us to all understand we did come here to honor that monument and what it stands for. Amen. Don't let them tell you any different. That is a part of your heritage. That's a part of your history. And we need to keep our legacy going. Amen.
Your legacy!
Well, the physical scene was of a crowd gathered around for the dedication of the monument, and university undergraduates were in attendance, along with the university faculty and the university president. A number of speeches, but particularly a speech by Julian Carr, who was a noted local businessman, entrepreneur, industrialist, Confederate veteran, and leading, what would be, potentate in the United Confederate Veterans in the state. And he gave a speech in which he framed the significance of the Civil War, of the Confederacy, and clarified what the meaning of this statue to the University of North Carolina students who had served in the Confederacy.
Well, of course, what he's talking about is the contribution of Confederate soldiers to the Ku Klux Klan in reversing the results, or limiting, I should say, the results of the Civil War and restoring all-white democratic rule. Another interesting thing about the dedication of Silent Sam is that when Julian Shakespeare Carr made his reference to saving the Anglo-Saxon race, he transitioned immediately to a personal reminiscence of something that he said happened to him right after the war ended and the campus was occupied by about 100 Union soldiers. He says in his speech, 100 yards from where we stand, less than 90 days perhaps after my return from Appomattox, I horsewhipped a Negro wench until her skirts hung in shreds, because upon the streets of this quiet village she had publicly insulted and maligned a Southern lady. Well, there you go. He's boasting about an act of violent brutality against a woman, a black woman, supposedly in defense of white womanhood. So those people who say that Silent Sam was put up with the intention of glorifying white supremacy are absolutely right. That was one of the intentions of the people who built the statue.
It really became a controversial monument during the 1960s as a result of the transformation of the demography of the UNC student body. When it first became explicitly controversial is probably after the assassination of Martin Luther King, when it was defaced with red paint, and subsequent to that, it became a routine organizing site or routine site for demonstrations dealing with race relations on the campus or in the town of Chapel Hill.
I'm Governor Roy Cooper. Last weekend I watched with horror the events in Charlottesville. It was shocking to see the racism, deadly violence, and white supremacy displayed so publicly. It started with the Confederate monument, stone and metal, inanimate, and yet more provocative now than ever. Unlike an African American father, I'll never have to explain to my daughters why there exists a monument for those who wish to keep her and her ancestors in chains. Some people cling to the belief that the Civil War was fought over states' rights, but history's not on their side. We can't continue to glorify a war against the United States of America fought in the defense of slavery. These monuments should come down. Our Civil War history is important, but it belongs in textbooks and museums.
racist statue's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This racist statue's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This racist statue's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This racist statue's got to go.
And soon.
Margaret Spelling's our guest today on Charlotte Talks on WFAE. You've had some difficulty in your 2-year tenure with the university's Board of Governors. The News and Observer says there's a power struggle between you and them. Is there?
I wouldn't say a power struggle. Do we have differences of opinion on issues? Sure, of course we do. Are those issues things we, worked through? Absolutely. They unanimously adopted the strategic plan that I was a major advocate for. So, there are differences of opinion around a variety of issues, but on the big stuff, we're in complete alignment.
We have an email comment about Silent Sam regarding the Confederate monument at Chapel Hill and growing calls for that statue to be removed. And I believe, I only know what I read in the papers, but the News and Observer.
You know better than that, Mike.
The News and Observer says that board members complained to you in a strongly worded letter about your handling of the issues surrounding the Silent Sam Confederate statue on that campus. And you had asked the governor for state help with security prior to a protest in August of last year, and the board took issue with that request. Why?
They sent that letter to me after Carol Folt, the chancellor of UNC-Chapel Hill, her board chair, and my board chair, and I, the four of us, sent a letter to the governor in the aftermath of the incidents in Charlottesville, right. And where we had gotten, a lot of, intel that something potentially could have broken out at Chapel Hill, and we did indeed have protests with hundreds and hundreds of people. And so, as I thought about it, what am I going to say to a mom if we haven't, sent up a flare? So they wrote that letter in the aftermath of that, and it's an area where we disagreed.
Well, we saved the worst for last. So we'll move on from there. I want to thank you for coming back. I think this is the third time you've been on this program, so come back again next year or whenever you want.
Thanks, Mike. I'd love to. Appreciate your interest.
Margaret Spellings, president of the University of North Carolina.
Renewed calls to see UNC's controversial Silent Sam Confederate monument taken down.
If I was a black woman or a black man walking past Silent Sam every day, I would feel like that I didn't belong on this campus.
This after the school's task force on history presented plans to shed light on the history of the statue.
Most historic quad on campus, and any plan to change it without addressing Silent Sam is just kicking the can down the road.
I think we're really drawn to McCorkle Place because it is, in historical terms, the very heart of the university.
James Lelutis is on the task force. He says the proposal calls for additional markers to share the story of McCorkle Place. It also includes Bluetooth features.
So as you pass one of these spots, your phone will light up, your tablet will light up and invite you to explore the history more fully.
The Unsung Founders Memorial nearby is a tribute to the slaves who built the first buildings on campus. Lelutis says renovations are needed. It's starting to sink into the ground. While some people agree with the task force and its mission to enrich and preserve history here on McCorkle Place, others say that the university is still not answering that big question. Should the Silent Sam Confederate monument stay on campus?
If people want to learn about Silent Sam as if he was a figure of the past, then he belongs in a museum and not standing over this quad.
I think it's important to know the context of Silent Sam and why it's on campus, but I think really the most important thing we can be doing is listening to people, especially students of color, people whose voices really matter on this issue, and being able to hear what they're saying and hear their thoughts.
In Chapel Hill, Lenny Sue Paul, Spectrum News.
Oh, how about if I put the key?
I was going to say.
How about if I put the key in?
Amateur hour.
I was trying to tell you.